Welcome to a Management Plus training webinar. My name is Kevin Sloan. I'm a certified electronic health record specialist and certified ophthalmic technician. Management Plus is an industry leader in EHR, and we want to provide you with the documentation tools and the skills to use these tools proficiently. Today's training webinar is titled Past Family Social History. Let's get started. Once again, we have Bob Hope on the screen. And we have navigated to the Past Family Social History form by clicking its title in the form tree on the left. It brings up this form. The Past Family Social History form is a static form. Static means that it's going to bring forward the data that was last documented on the last record. You know that it's static because of the letter S that's right here at the end of its form name. So once you document values in here, it will always retain those values. Let's take a look at the social history section. Have tobacco and alcohol here. These are values that were previously documented. Let's see when they were. I'm going to right click on this and choose field audit, and you can see that it was last documented on October 16th, 2015. Today's record is March 11th, 2016. The field audit does show this old date because that's when it was last documented. So you can see that here it was never smoked and now it's never smoker. So every time it was changed, that is updated. Please pick items from this list. These are government approved items. This is one of the few controls inside of EHR that you do not want to type into, even though you could if you wanted, but you will not get credit for this. This is a meaningful use associated control. So please pick one of these values that's on this. If you choose former smoker, two things are going to happen. Actually, on this one, just one. When I exit the control by pressing tab or entering another control, it's going to change the SNOMED status. The RX or SNOMED code here, it's going to change it. If I do current everyday smoker, this will actually do two items. When I exit that, I'll get a clinical decision support rule that says don't forget to discuss smoking cessation. And then when I click that, it will change the SNOMED smoking status to the associated code. It will tab over to the discuss cessation switch, and you can just hit the space bar or click it to indicate that you have discussed cessation. Clicking the denies button will set this to never smoker, and it will set this to the current SNOMED code, as you can see here. The other controls down below is to indicate the number, type, frequency, number of years, and discontinue. For meaningful use, the only three controls within this that are necessary to document values within are the status, discuss cessation, and of course the SNOMED code for that, which is done for you automatically. So you only have to do two. And in a lot of cases, if they don't smoke, it's just going to be one. You can just click this button and it will put never smoker in there. All of these other controls are optional. You do not have to document in there for meaningful use. If your physician prefers that you put values within these controls, that is perfectly fine. You can certainly do that. They will show up on the narrative. The alcohol use section is entirely voluntary. None of these controls are associated with meaningful use, so feel free to use these as your physician directs you to. Otherwise, don't worry about documenting anything in here because these are not associated with meaningful use. It is just a physician preference. Below are some switches for driving car, yes or no. Lives alone. These are not associated with meaningful use, so only if your physician directs you to document values within those controls, feel free to do so if he asks you to. Patient assessed for fall risk. You can see that it has a flag in there already. That means that it was checked before. This is part of one of your 5 clinical decision support rules. If we uncheck that, leave the form by clicking another form, and then coming back. Because Bob is over 65, if he was alive, he would be 112. You'll get this informational message. It's not an error message. It's just information that says don't forget to assess for fall risk. And then you can go back into the form. It's only when you go in there. So when you create new records on your patients for the first time, and if they're over 65, you'll ask the patient, have you fallen in the last 6 months? If they say no, click the box. If they say yes, I fell, in the past 6 months, advise them to go see their family physician and still check the box. Then you've completed your job for doing your fall risk assessment. We do recommend that for the smoking and the fall risk that you update these at least once a year, and that's very easily accomplished by unchecking the box, exiting that control by pressing tab or entering into another control, and then clicking the box again. If I do a field audit by right-clicking and choosing field audit, you can see that here it was set to true on June 6th, March 11th, which is today, I changed it to false. And as you remember, I just exited the control and then I set it back to true again. So I have now updated this field audit to today's value. So if an auditor ever checks, you can say that yes, our system documents when we last did this, and you can show them so that you do that on a yearly basis. To the right, you can document your primary care physician, vital signs, and so forth. For meaningful use, the only 3 sections that really apply are height, weight, and blood pressure. BMI is automatically calculated when you enter your height and weight. Temperature, pulse, respiration are not necessary. You do not have to do that. You will find these on the meaningful use form, as well as all the other social status controls. But again, as I mentioned, only height, weight, and blood pressure is required, and then the status, the discuss cessation, and then of course the SNOMED status, which is automatic, as well as the BMI. Please remember to document your height in inches. 5 feet 7 inches will not work in this correctly. So let's try to delete this. So 5 feet 7 inches, and when I exit the control, I'll get this script error. That doesn't mean the system's broken. That means that you entered the data incorrectly. So 5 feet 7 inches is 67 inches. Okay. And then when I exit that, I do not get any script errors because the data was entered correctly. Okay. Moving down below here, we have the problem list, ocular and systemic problems, surgeries, past medical history. It all gets entered into this section right here. They have an associated SNOMED code. This was covered in detail on the Chief Complaint and HPI form. We'll quickly go over this again. So we have ocular favorites and systemic favorites that are set up for you. So this is just a handful of items that we have available so that you can quickly select items. You can have more or less within these lists. Your EHR specialist will be happy to set up whatever you need for this. As you can see, if you select this code, when you exit that, it changes this number in here. If you happen to know the SNOMED code, you could actually type it into that and then click this button and it would put it in there for you. So it works out very easy for you to enter that data. If you've selected something like bacterial conjunctivitis and you click that, if it is not in this list already, it will add that with today's date, and you can see it was not ever in this list. If I try to add that again, it will not add that in there again because you can only have it in there one time. Let's try rheumatoid arthritis. If that was not there, RH brings it up. It's a narrow down search engine on both. You just hit enter, tab, and then enter, And again, if it's not on the list, it will add it. And it was not, so it did add that to the list. The full list over here accesses the entire list for your problem. You can type in options in there. I would recommend that you paste them in there. If you start to type, it'll start to find the first few letters of each word, and it will take quite a bit of time. You could actually type in here an item into this control, and just make sure it's spelled correctly. I would cut that out of there via your keyboard commands and then paste it in. The very first time you put this in for a patient on this workstation, it may take quite a bit of time for it to search through there and find that. All subsequent entries will be fairly quick. Now you can arrow down through the list and see the entire list of options that are available. And if we select that and you press tab and then enter or click this script button next, it will add that on the top with today's date. Yet another way to add values within this is to right click, problem list, add, and then you could type it into this or paste it in and you get the exact same list, or you could click the flashlight and then access the full list. So let's just delete that out and you can see the full list. Again, if you paste it in there, it'll be much faster. If you try to type it, your search results will be a little slower. Let's try GLAUCOMA. That wasn't too bad. The first time I did this earlier, it took several minutes for it to search through. All subsequent searches are pretty fast. So you can come down through this list and find items that you want to select. If you know you're going to be using this quite a bit, you can right click and add this to your favorites list. This is not the favorites list that I just showed you. This is a favorites list within the system. Now, if you're ever into this control and you have the full list open, you can click favorites. Now all of your favorites will be right there. You can double click, click OK, and again, if it's not on the list, it will put it right there on the top, making it very easy to do. Scrolling down to the bottom is the patient family health history grid. This is a direct entry grid. You do not need to right click and do anything, because if you do, you'll get this type of option, which is what you don't really want to do. If you're not in the grid and you click, it will go to the first control, and you can press, actually it did not go to the first one. I'm just going to click in there. Let's try this again. I'm actually going to delete that line. Let's try this. We'll click over where it says date. Now I'm in the first control. If you remember, T for today, and I press tab, takes me to the next column, the name. And I'm just tabbing and then typing. You'll notice that there are some the three dots at the very end of each one of these sections. If you click this, it will bring up the record table. Totally unnecessary to do that. Feel free to just type it in there. Much faster. It doesn't have to come from the record table. And just type away. If you click the plus sign now, it's going to add another line above that line. If you're not in the grid and you click in, again, it will put it below. And if you click wherever you click in there, it will add the new line and put your cursor in that column. I'd select over here in the date, and then you can do T for today. And enter your data. If you ever need to delete a line, select the line right here and then click the red minus sign. It's going to ask if you want to delete it. Click OK and it will be gone. That completes the training on the PFS Family Social History Form. Thank you for your attention.